We will have to strategize just in the future who gets to wear the VinePair sweatshirt and when.
Mm-hmm. And the coat, the chore coat as well.
It's like it's a nerve-wracking thing. It's like we got the good swag, but then like you can't all wear it at the same time. You know what I mean? Gotta start
or we just have to all wear it at the same time.
No, it looks like a real uniform.
Only wear it.
Joanna, you should pick the swag next time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
You think about it.
That's a lot of pressure.
I know.
I feel like you have a very particular
Think about what's cool,
style and aesthetic.
What works, what peeps would like.
Okay.
You know, some Converse, some branded Converse. Yeah, think about it. Think about it.
I know a Crocs guy, if you're interested.
I know I'm not interested in Crocs.
Oh, that's a hard pass for me,
I'm
too.
not interested in
Me
Crocs.
neither.
I'm not interested in gibbets or whatever they're called.
Those go on the Crocs.
Yeah, like I just, I thought the Croc was done
Oh, it's not done.
with the Batali scandal, but it's back. You
thought Batali killed the Crocs?
I was hoping he did. He
Right.
was a real spokesperson,
Oh, my goodness. Very much so.
And then, he did what he did, and he's done. And I was hoping.
Isn't he trying to come back, though?
Who? How?
I don't know.
If he's going to come
Well,
back, just go to see
I wouldn't put it past him or the current world, but yeah.
True.
Exactly.
He should.
Let's not go
Anyways,
further down this horrible rabbit hole.
Should we start? Should we start the show?
Yes.
Cool. From VinePair's New York City headquarters, I'm Adam Teeter.
And I'm Joanna Sciarrino.
And in Seattle, Washington, I'm Zach Chabal.
And this is the VinePair Podcast. All right. What you been reading, Joanna?
Okay, what have I been reading? So I first want to talk about our holiday bottle shop
It's great looking.
that launched this week. It looks awesome.
Yep.
It is 40 bottles of wine and spirits that everybody should check out as we head into holiday season. A lot of great picks. Curation was done by Hannah. The design was done by Marcello. And it looks awesome. So I wanted to give that a little shout.
Love it.
What'd you
it's
think?
crazy we're here already in the holiday season, isn't it?
October just evaporated, I feel.
So did September. I think they went
Yeah.
like it was. I feel like also though this was the first time. Again, we're gonna talk about the weather real quick. That we got like a real fall.
Yeah.
But yeah,
October was
I
great.
think September everyone was holding on to summer still, and then it just like fall came, over, done,
Yep.
boom, holidays. Let's go.
Yeah.
We're gonna start checking out soon.
It is all the gift guides are coming out, not on our site, but like
Everywhere.
And they were coming out even in like, I feel like end of October.
Oh, dude, I was in Target over the weekend, and there was a pre-Black Friday sale. And I was like, what are we doing?
Every week is Black Friday in November, I feel
What
like.
is happening?
Yeah. I'll take a deal. It's fine.
Yeah.
I need to, I'm getting very stressed out though. This is the problem. Because I'm like, yeah, we got to launch these things for the site.
Let's go.
But I'm like, I need to start buying Christmas presents.
Really?
I'm getting really stressed about it. And I'm hosting Thanksgiving, so that's not
That
helping.
is going to be
This
very
not
stressful for you.
helping.
We're going to do a whole therapy session on you hosting Thanksgiving for a future podcast before it happens. But
You and I can
Okay,
commiserate, Joanna. I'm hosting this year too, so.
wow.
It's the first time for me, so
Oh, my.
I'm
Okay.
stressed.
I think you're going to crush it.
I think it'll be fine. I think, but I'm not like a chill person, as we all know. So I just can't I can't just go with the flow so easily. Like, oh, this is going to be super stressful, but it's fine. I'm just going to pop a few beta blockers and go with it. This is my new thing.
This is why
Take beta blockers now. Thanks, Josh.
this is why you have to you pop open a bottle of wine or have a drink throughout the day
that's
and
it. It's
cook.
the beta blockers or start drinking at
That's
noon.
how you do it. It's the only way.
You've got the holiday bottle guide to
happens.
guide you. You're good to go.
It's like, food makes it to the
exactly.
table or it doesn't. It is what it
Yes,
is.
exactly. The holiday bottle guide.
Yeah,
will
you're gonna
guide
get
Yeah,
me.
did
At
Hannah
least
pick
like
a
in New
bottle
York.
specifically for this situation? I hope so.
Yeah.
High alcohol.
To get you through Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Look, at least the
Barrel-proof
situation with
whiskey.
New York.
Boom.
You're gonna have tons of places you can order from. You know?
I know, but this is the problem that I'm having because I usually make pies every Thanksgiving, and that would be a very easy thing to just order this year. But I'm like, oh, it's such a part of the tradition.
Do it.
I know. Evan was like,
Do
we're
it.
ordering pies.
Do it. I would tell you where to order from. I'm sure you like your spot, but I mean, Petey's is the best.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Okay.
It's like the pies are so good and it's totally worth it. Why would you give yourself that stress?
I know.
But do it as soon as we finish recording because you don't want to get caught out.
I know.
Exactly. You don't want to be like, you missed the cutoff date. Anyways,
I know.
what
All
else
right,
are you
thanks,
reading?
guys. Okay, I'm going to also talk about a piece that we published this week from Aaron Goldfarb about can we stop overthinking the highball? And it's a hot take.
I agree with him.
He blames Suntory. He literally blames Suntory in it. Sorry, Suntory. But yeah, basically like this idea of like these newfangled highballs, and really it kind of takes away from what the drink was originally meant to be, which is just like this perfect combination of whiskey and soda water and ice.
You know,
and
it's
why are we doing that?
I think it's because the reason we are doing it, I think, without having read the piece, since you're fucking cheating and we're recording this podcast before this piece has come out, is that I feel like it's very simple. Americans don't like highballs. Like, they don't. And so I think, you know, and lots of brands have tried it. I've had a very long conversation about this with Ed Pilkington, who's the CMO of Diageo, and how like Diageo has tried in the past to do the highball strategy in the US because it's so popular in Britain, like Scotch and soda. They would just call it Scotch and soda, but it's like very popular in Britain.
Yeah.
And they just seen like it just is not popular here. Like, we do not want to drink watered down carbonated whiskey. Like, we want the whiskey.
Well, we do, but in a specific setting.
Yes.
Right? Like whiskey soda, whiskey ginger, like those types of mixed drinks.
With soda. But like, I think, so the highball traditionally, right, is soda water and whiskey.
Yeah.
And I think the reason it's become complicated is because a bunch of bars pushed by Suntory, right? So Diageo was just trying to push the Scotch and soda. Like, how can we get this that does really well in Britain to do very well here? It's not going to, right? Same reason that the gin tonic's popular here, but like not super popular. I think the Scotch and soda to most Americans is like the drink their great grandfather drank, right? Or whoever is the greatest generation to you, right? It's a very old white man's drink.
Yeah.
Who probably belongs to a country club. But like, I think Suntory has that culture as well, because remember, right, Suntory, like, and all of Japanese whiskey is a perfection of Scotch, right? That's the whole idea. So they brought a lot of that culture, and then the highball really took off in Japan. I think the reason it's become more intense here is like this chase of trying to create somewhat of a not soda and Scotch version, but like I've had the like green apple highball, like adding some kind of flavor and sweetness that you just don't get with a traditional highball, which I think
to make it more appealing
to an American consumer.
Yeah.
Which I, again, having not read Aaron's piece, I cannot say what his conclusion is, but I would say like, just stop it. Like, then just make other drinks with, you know, these whiskeys. And also my other point would be, let's stop making highballs with Japanese whiskey, because Japanese whiskey is just too damn expensive anyway at this point in time to like really.
Well, that was his whole idea.
With Japanese whiskey
was that it was the Toki highball, right? All their whiskey was too expensive, too hard to get. So then they launched Toki, which was made for the highballs.
Right.
So,
please, what have you been reading, Zach?
Oh, yeah. So I think for me, the most one of the things that caught my eye on the site recently was John Sumner's piece about kind of the shifting timing for dining and drinking. You know, we've talked about this a few times, actually, not too or pretty recently on the podcast, about kind of how it was something that I was even seeing in Seattle pre-COVID, but it's, I think, been accelerated since then, where you have just people wanting to kind of like get in, get out earlier in the day, even on weekends, but especially during the week. And I think, you know, I come back, I think the time we talked about this before, Adam, I think you brought up a point that I hadn't even totally considered, that I'm not even sure makes it into this piece, but is I think worth noting, which is like, we just talk a lot more about how important sleep is for people these days. And not that everyone has the opportunity to. I am fighting it right now with my daughter, honestly. But fundamentally, that thing of like, if you're not someone who can sort of afford, in whatever way you mean that, to sleep in, you know, late in the morning, whatever day you're going out drinking, the idea of being out late, even if you're younger, I think is less appealing in a lot of places. And, you know, that it's really interesting to see kind of how that's to some extent creating winners and losers among bars and restaurants, you know, places that are already kind of known for being after work or like kind of late afternoon, early evening hangs are doing well with this, and places that were more focused on, you know, later in the evening dining and drinking maybe have struggled to adapt. But, you know, just interesting piece looking at, you know, this kind of macro trend and then seeing specific examples of how it is and isn't affecting people's business. So,
yeah. I think it's fascinating because I definitely think it's created fewer and fewer late night spots.
Yeah.
Which is a real bummer when you need it.
Right.
So like when we were in DC, right, for the NFL barefoot like party that we threw, we were there till, I mean, the game didn't end until like 11 something, 11:15, and none of us had eaten dinner. And it was really hard to find anything near this bar. And then finally we were told by the staff of the bar we were at, oh, there's one late night bar that's like 2 blocks away. The kitchen's open until 12:30. And so like we walk over there and we get there at 11:30 and the bouncer like lets us in, whatever. And we're like, oh, like we want to take tables, we want to eat. And he's like, oh, we closed the kitchen 30 minutes ago. I was like, what? Everyone told us you're open until 12:30. He's like, no, we close it when we feel like it's starting to get slow. Like I just feel, and like that's so hard for service professionals then to find anywhere to eat after work. Like that whole culture is kind of going away. And yeah, you have like he's like, yeah, there's the one place that's the old Ebbett Grill that we could have gotten into a car and gone way away from where we were and where we were staying to go to like the one spot that's still known for being open and having their kitchen run till 2 a.m. because they're also serving, I don't know, Capitol Hill or something they were saying. But like otherwise, there's nothing.
Yeah.
And you're stuck with takeout. And like that stinks. But I do think it's a lot of this. People go out earlier and then they go home. I've been surprised to even talk to people who own sports bars and things that like on certain weeknights, if the game is going later, people will go home and like finish the second half at home.
Right.
Because like they don't want to be out continuing to drink because they're prioritizing sleep. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, all right. So for me, what I had been reading, I'm gonna have to pull up my notes, is Dave Infante's piece on how basically they're going in for the kill on THC beverages, right? That like it feels like the end is nigh. And what he talks about is that this is the first time we've seen like 30 plus attorney generals all sign a letter to Congress basically saying you need to fix this loophole in the Farm Bill. Like the amount of THC beverages and THC products that are on the market that are unregulated, that don't fall under any state's legalization program, but instead are using a loophole in the Farm Bill that allows for the growth of not cannabis but hemp that still produces THC, right, is a huge problem. And the fact that you can find these beverages on the shelves in gas stations and other convenience stores, et cetera, without any regulation, any ID checks, nothing, with this massive psychoactive component, right? You have some of these beverages that have 100 milligrams of THC in them, is a really big problem, and you need to fix this. And we've not seen this many attorney generals sign on like this in a very long time, and especially from both parties and from states that have legalization, states that don't. And like it really feels like they're going in for the kill to try to end this loophole. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens, because I think there was some chatter from, for a while that like this loophole was kind of here to stay, and people have put big money into this space. You have a lot of brands that are now coasting off of this and have online stores, and you can buy the THC products off of Instagram and stuff. And like when
it's also a lifeboat for a lot of breweries that were struggling.
Yeah,
right?
A lot of breweries are making it. And when you think about it, though, it's wild because like this shouldn't be allowed. I mean, we have an unregulated drug market, right? That you can purchase the drugs via social media.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't do this with any other drug unless you're doing it in the dark web, right? So this is a huge issue, and just remains to be seen how quickly it takes to get corrected. But it feels like it's at this point going to, right? Yeah. There's too much pressure.
Yeah, I was talking to Dave earlier about it today, and he said like a lot of the THC, his contacts in that space like are freaking out. He was kind of like, well, this was kind of an inevitability. Like, how did you not prepare for this or see this as one outcome of this situation?
I think like a loophole fails to become a loophole when everyone becomes aware of the loophole.
Right.
It's like if a few people are taking advantage of this, loophole that they've discovered, they probably very early adopters of the loophole have done quite well and probably raked it in. Yeah. The second everybody's taking advantage of a loophole and building like full business plans around a loophole is probably not a great idea.
Pretty risky. Yeah.
Pretty risky. But it is interesting how many people did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about this with Dave. I think actually maybe when you were on vacation, Adam, earlier in the year, because he had written another piece kind of in this vein about, kind of how distributors were starting to get on board with these products. And one of the questions I sort of asked was, is anyone kind of concerned about building a whole business out off of a loophole, off of what is clearly precarious, and sort of just trusting that, maybe this is a safe bet in a lot of cases, but like essentially that the government's not going to get around to fixing this at some point. And, it's, I think, an interesting part of the conversation to kind of think back on as I read this piece, because, yeah, it definitely feels like there were a lot of folks who just kind of were like, well, surely this will just continue to be okay. And yeah, I mean, even in the modern American political environment, I think some things maybe still do happen occasionally, and this seems to be one thing that is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Anyways, yeah. Zach, you've got our topic for today.
I do, yeah. So speaking of things written by Daves that we read and were interested in, I want to come back to something that Dave Foss wrote a couple of weeks ago now for Full Book, which was a really interesting piece to me about how the sort of, I would call it almost like the unseen cost of the kind of high-end craft cocktail program in a lot of bars and restaurants. And, Dave does a really good job of laying out a lot of the different pieces. I think to me, one of the most interesting things that he discusses in there is sort of, we think about the labor cost, or some of us think about kind of the labor that goes into making these sort of higher end cocktail bars work. Just the number of touches, the amount of experience and skill you need to be behind one of those bars, or even to work on the prep side. But a thing that I hadn't really totally thought about until I read the piece, and that also kind of clocked with me, was, there's also just this sort of expectation of premium everything throughout the bar program, and that how in a lot of these cases, the bar just feels compelled to use relatively high-end spirits in all of the drinks, both kind of, even if that does eat into their profitability potentially, and also in some cases, I think even if it doesn't make the drink meaningfully better, it's just the expectation of the drinker is, well, I'm spending a lot of money, or I'm going to a fancy cocktail bar. I want to see, maybe not the absolute highest end spirits in my cocktail, but I kind of don't feel satisfied, even if I wouldn't know the difference, unless I'm seeing kind of name brand, relatively pricey spirits in there. And it made me think a lot about what I wanted to talk to you guys about, which is this sort of question of, we've talked a lot about the sort of this upper echelon of cocktail bars, and then how some of the craft cocktail coattails, or whatever you want to call it, have sort of spread throughout the industry, even outside of places that are aspiring to be, contenders for, recognition at the, national or international level. But what I was kind of most curious about for the two of you was, one, how do you feel about this sort of thinking about this sort of from the side of, do you feel like you have to be using these premium spirits to make these drinks work, or to make them sellable, I guess? And second of all, and I think this is part of Dave's point in the piece, the expectation and the sort of demand of the cocktail drinking public has sort of escaped containment of just like the sort of very high-end bars that can, I don't want to say afford to do this, but are built around a sort of model of, we're going to make a lot of very high-end drinks. We're going to make a lot of kind of labor-intensive drinks, and that's built into our model. And when that's spread to other kinds of establishments, less lofty bars, restaurants, things like that, where the expectation remains, but the maybe the ability to make that work financially, or even just work as a drink fundamentally, is not the same.
I think that for the premium, I'll answer the first part.
Oh, I wanted to answer the first part.
Okay. Well, I think for the premium spirits or super premium spirits, I think that you need that. There's like a threshold. I think that for any drink that's like $25 and under, you can.
I love that that's your threshold, 25.
Well, yeah. This is anything higher than that or more expensive than that. That's when I feel like you really need to justify why this drink is so expensive. I think 25 and under is like, you can get away with it just being labor. It's a very fancy cocktail. Fine. If you're getting into like, this is a $30 drink, this is a $40 drink, it's got to have some sort of like exquisite spirit in it that's justifying that, plus the labor or whatever. But that's what I think about that.
So I think on that point, we can blame two things at the same time for why this exists. So first, I agree with you that if you're going to do one of these like, Louis Trace, whatever. I get that. People do that. It's like, to me, that's like the Daniel Boulud golden cheeseburger. Remember that? Where it's like the gold foil and shit.
Gold leaf, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like very expensive and it was for press. And that, a lot of places do that.
It's the exact same thing.
Yes, exactly.
It's like it has some expensive ingredient in it, and that's why your burger is $55.
Yes. And that, I think, is a different conversation, right? That's like, that exists and has always existed. And the places that are trying to do that are the places like the insane rooftop bar on the Ritz, or, you know, some of these like kind of baller places where places in Vegas.
Like the reserve cocktails or whatever. Yeah,
I get that. I think the other place where this happens is on the general menu, and I blame the farm to table movement.
Okay.
And sales reps.
Okay.
For two reasons that are different. One, the farm to table movement is, I think, a lot of these bars, right? I mean, sorry, a lot of these restaurants started putting like Snake River Farm on, and like no one gives a fuck what Snake River Farm is. I'm sorry, they don't know what Snake River
for their ingredients.
Yes, or this is from
like how they're sourcing their ingredients.
This is from Lancaster Farm Co-op. It's a great. I love Lancaster Farm Co-op, but like, do you think the average consumer is like, oh, because the tomatoes are from here, I'm totally gonna pay $10 more for this pasta dish? Like, they do not care, right? For the most part, but we educate people that we should care where our food comes from. I think that's a good thing. Don't come from the internet. But like, you know,
come for you. You're literally blaming the farm to table movement.
Yes. So that bled
truly
into
the greatest
cocktails.
villain in modern cuisine.
Yeah.
That bled into cocktails, and we want to see the ingredients, right? So when Milk and Honey started, right, they did not tell you it was in that shit. They said, what are you feeling? I like a whiskey cocktail. You never knew what the fucking whiskey they were using was. Like, it could have been Old Granddad. You didn't care. The cocktail was delicious, and you paid for it. And you paid for the space and the ambiance and the feeling and the glassware and all that stuff. All of it, right? Then I think when we started putting ingredients on the menu, the reason that the brands exist, and it doesn't just say like, you know, chartreuse, you know, maraschino cherry, right? Everyone knows what I'm building here. Gin and lime juice. It says the brands is because the sales rep started saying, put our brands on the menu. Please, how can we get you to put our brands on the menu? So then it starts saying, for someone's last word, Faccio Brutto Centebre, not chartreuse. Why? Because they want you to know that they're this competitor that hopefully they think they're building their brand. Like the great saying, right, is you build brands in the on-premise.
Yeah. Well, I think with regular
Which I actually don't think through cocktails you do, to be fair. No. I think unless the liquid is the star of the cocktail, you 100% do not. If you are the tequila cocktail and you are so I think the main brands often do, but it's only if you are the focus, right? If it's a tequila cocktail and then you're using Lalo or Ocho or right, you're building the brand on the on-premise. But if you're a cocktail that happens to have a small amount of tequila as an ingredient, but it's not actually a tequila cocktail, you know what I'm saying? Although any cocktail probably has tequila seen as a tequila cocktail, so let's be clear. But I think it's all about brand building, and that's why people start doing it. And then that behavior has trickled out to all the markets where salespeople across the country are like, yeah, like, can you please put the brand on the menu? Can you please, you know, Chili's is doing it. You know, like we have a Patron margarita. We have people want to start seeing the brands, and that's being reinforced not just by the consumer, but by the salespeople, by the brand. Yeah. The brand is saying this is helping us build the brand. So I think then, yes, now that you're used to seeing what the brands are, you're starting to say, okay, well, this is a good brand, a bad brand, a cheap brand, and not so, right? No one puts the on the menu, right? It's just like, well, not usually. That's why it's like, it's so hard is when brands like say to me, like, I want to become known as the well brand. I'm like, that's a blessing and a curse, right? That's a blessing and a curse. It's probably going to be really great for you for the on-premise, but like for the off-premise, like you're now the well brand to most consumers. Like you don't want to be known as the well brand. So like all of this is to say, I think that's why this happens. And I don't know if there's no way to stop it. The other point I think Dave was making in the piece was that like, he feels like there's too many. I feel like he feels like there's too many places that are trying to do the high end cocktail thing, right? Exactly. And that's what's bad. And again, like, I don't know, Dave. There's a lot of people that are trying to do the natural wine thing too, because they're reading about it in all the press and they're seeing it happen in the cities when they go vacation and they want to bring that back to their towns. And I get it, because I think why he's talking about is it's probably failing for a lot of people. But the problem is that,
or it's not done well either.
Right. But if you are interested in opening something and you've been to a major market and you've really enjoyed your times out in Seattle or San Francisco or New York, Chicago, and now you want to open a place in a secondary market or a small college town, like that probably is what excites you, not just like another run-of-the-mill spot. And you're going to have to learn whether or not that can succeed or fail, which is like, I think what Dave should be thanking his lucky stars for is this happens so that he has a job. Right? Like if there weren't people doing this, there would be no need for restaurant consultants. Right? So. Not to pick on Dave. I love him, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like there are people that want to do this because they get so excited when they travel or when they read about these things, and then they go and they try to do this and it doesn't work, and then they need someone like him to come in and help them fix the program.
Yeah.
But like I don't think it's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Is it detriment? I mean, I think more what we've talked about, which we have to be better about as consumers, is that we bring our expectations from New York City to, you know,
Ann Arbor.
Yeah, or Auburn. And then I get a cocktail. I'm like, where's the clear ice?
Yeah.
Like,
This is a true story. This literally happened.
It's like, I'm the douchebag now, right? Like, I'm the asshole. Like, not them. Like, that's the ice they have, you know? And that's more of what we have to talk about. It's like, look, as long as I can get a good martini if I want it, or a good Negroni, like, I think that there are certain classic cocktails at this point that, like, are canon in the US, and you should not have to explain to someone, and I'd be curious what drinks you guys think these are, but there are a few classics I don't think you should have to explain to most bartenders at most nice bars, not a fucking sports bar in Auburn, Alabama, like there's a place called Touchdowns. Like, I should not have to teach, I should not order a Negroni at Touchdowns, right? But like at the nice War Eagle Supper Club on the roof of the Graduate Hotels in Auburn, Alabama, I should be able to order a Negroni, and they should know how to fucking make it. Or an Acre, another great restaurant in Auburn. They should know how to make these things. Otherwise, like, you know, what are we doing? Like that culture does spread. Like, so I that's why I was kind of like, I don't really fully understand the complaint here.
Well, I think if I were to say something, I would say maybe there's an issue is you end up with a lot of kind of halfway bars, right? Where they're sort of on the one hand, maybe the owner or the head bartender, whoever, has sort of these aspirations of like, I think we can make drinks on par with great bars in other cities. And we think we can do this. Or we think, you know, whatever, maybe you can't get every last piece of, you know, of the experience totally right, but you think you can take it on. And I think it's, you know, it ends up being a much more difficult lift than it looks like, maybe even for a relatively knowledgeable drinker, for all the reasons that Dave lays out in the piece. I do think that you're right, though, that part of the challenge too is like, you have to kind of recognize, like, I think it's certainly possible to open a great cocktail bar kind of anywhere. Whether that cocktail bar will succeed is kind of a different question. And some of that is just, you know, knowing your audience. Some of that is knowing, you know, who's coming through town. I mean, I think Auburn is maybe a good example of this, where you are going to get, you know, a decent, well, maybe some years at least, a decent amount of people coming through for football games.
Shut up, Zach.
And who are, you know, people like you, Adam, maybe not specifically co-founders of a drinks publication, but people who are like coming back from other cities where they are, you know, where they're returning to, you know, for whatever reason, their affiliation to Auburn is something that brings them back from time to time. And they want to have an experience that, well, maybe it's not exactly on par with the best cocktail bars in their home cities or wherever, is, you know, they're not going to feel like, well, can I even order this drink here? Because are they going to be able to, they know what it is, they're going to be able to get it right. And so I do think that it's kind of tough, you know, and I've written about this before, of places that really do aspire to these kind of, you know, lofty heights and smaller markets. And yeah, like ice, as you mentioned, is a big challenge for them, or at least is it become a challenge for them, because the expectation is there, you know, sometimes sourcing ingredients, and certainly just finding staff to actually, you know, who know what they're doing, who can make the drinks, who understand it. You know, all of these things are challenges everywhere, but I think they become bigger challenges when you move outside of the dozen or so biggest markets that have some of that kind of, you know-how and those resources in reserve. And yet it does not seem to stop people from trying. And like, on the one hand, I think that's cool. On the other hand, I think, you know, as Dave points out, and, you know, maybe to his own benefit, that it is a harder thing to do than it seems like, or it's harder than just getting the drinks right.
Look, I think it's very hard. And I think the easier solution here, and what probably most people should do, like the most successful restaurateurs, that are like, we're talking like there are restaurateurs in New York, Philadelphia, et cetera, right, that are wealthy, that have done very well. But like when you read about some of these like restaurant empires, it's often people that operate like in the middle. And often they do exactly what we're saying, which is if it's not broke, they don't fix it.
Yeah.
Right. They are doing, whiskey Cokes, red blends, like steaks, burgers, like that works. Right. But you can be successful with the cocktail thing if you have people on staff that are willing to take it on and really try. And I think like the best example for this for me is a place like the Horse Inn in Lancaster.
Yeah.
Like it is a great cocktail bar with now their own set of like high-end barrel pick bourbon and whatever, but they've had staff that want to work there because of that. They are close enough to Philadelphia, being like an hour and 15 away, that they have a clientele that has been exposed to that. And then it's about the whole thing that we talked about a few times ago with regulars. It's about hospitality. Like if you can explain to the guest why you're doing this and what you're trying to do and help them try these things, you do then, if it is successful, I do believe you become a destination and you have that competitive edge to some other place.
Yeah.
Can everybody do that? No. Do I think that just because you want to have a martini program, you should, if you don't have the desire or ability to train the staff on how to make great martinis and understand the guest order and all that stuff? Yeah, then I think that's a really bad idea.
Yeah.
But if you can and you do, it works. And so I think maybe what Dave is trying to say here is that most people think, oh, it'd be fun to have a cocktail bar, but then they don't want to do all the work to have the cocktail bar. But I mean, look, you can do clear ice in these markets if you want to get the coolers and figure out how to double freeze. And there were none of these like clear ice delivery services and stuff existed at the beginning of the cocktail renaissance in New York and San Francisco.
Yep.
They were doing it themselves. They were all figuring it out. There is no reason why people in other markets can't figure it out if they think that they are passionate enough about it that they can convince a clientele to be passionate about it too. And maybe they can and maybe they can't. And maybe there's too many dollar beer places in their vicinity in a college town that they're competing against. But maybe they create a place that every professor wants to go to. I don't, you know what I mean? I think, again, if you are passionate about it and you work really hard at it, it can work. You just have to know that like that's what it's going to take.
Yeah. I think that the point that you made earlier makes a lot of sense. Like, I think it makes more sense to open a place where you can execute classic cocktails really well instead of trying to be almost overambitious and open a place in maybe a market that doesn't require it or doesn't need it, where you have like your own riff on the last word.
Right.
And like you can't execute on it really for where people's expectations are at.
I was gonna say, I think the problem with what you're saying, Joanna, where you run into the problem is that in a lot of these smaller markets, right, it becomes very employee dependent. Yeah. And if that employee moves on, then sort of like maybe you had one employee that was really good at making these creations. So like, I mean, again, this is the Horse Inn. They have a great cocktail, like a great regular cocktail program, but they did have one bartender for a while that was really into tiki, and they started doing these tiki nights. Mm-hmm. And they started getting a following for these tiki nights they were doing. And then that bartender moved on. He actually, I think, might have moved to Philadelphia. So like, then the tiki nights stopped because none of the other bartenders were into tiki. And that's, I think, the problem that you can run into in these smaller markets where there's just not enough people. Yeah. So if you have certain bartenders like, look, I'm really good at making the classics. You teach me how to make them. I can execute against them. Then you have the one person who's like, I want to do a bunch of riffs and put like names on the menu, and they leave. Yeah. And you know, someone else that wants to do that anymore. Those cocktails can get really bad really quickly.
Yep.
Right. Or someone who's going to come in and do infusions and all kinds of stuff and they're, on their, before their shift and put in all that work, paid or other, well, you hopefully paid, but fundamentally, like you can't rely on that. In markets where like that's going to be a hard program to keep moving, especially as people do move on to other jobs or other places.
Yeah. I mean, secondary markets we talk about, smaller markets are hard for hospitality. You have people who still want to open and run restaurants and bars, but less people that want to work in them or work in them as a long-term career. Right. Because also there's just not as many places for them to hop. There's not as many places for them to grow. Yeah. So you're dealing with a lot of people who are in college, just out of college. You know, it's a part-time job as they're going to school, and, you know, several different things, or it's a second job for them. Like, it's not the same as, you know, in the cities we live in. For a lot of people, it is a career. And a very serious one, and it just isn't. And I think that's really more even part of the problem than, and I think, again, this goes back to I blame us. Like, we have these expectations. It's like we go to the Catskills from New York City, and we expect to go to these boutique hotels and bars and have the same caliber drinks and things that we should have in New York.
Yeah.
And look, I think the expectations are fair because we're being charged by the ownership the same prices. Right. And we're paying a ridiculous amount for the rooms in these hotels, et cetera. But like, the talent just isn't there. Yeah. And if it is there, it moves to New York.
Right.
Well,
I think it's the talent isn't there, but it's also like the learning and investment in the employees has to be there first.
And
right?
it's usually not.
Yeah. So for these other places, it's like you can have you can train everybody on tiki so that when the one guy leaves, somebody else knows what, but like you have to have that training in, you know, that has to be a part of the actual place. And that's a lot of money, right? That's more investment in labor and more time. And yeah.
I don't know. Let us know what you think. Our craft cocktail program is kind of like hurting the restaurant.
I just don't know if it's like killing the bar.
I don't think it is.
But I want to hear what you think.
I don't think it is. But look, I mean, we know Dave likes himself a fun Chili's margarita mojito mix. So maybe I don't know. But yeah, I don't think it is either. I think it is signaling. I think especially to a lot of consumers, it is signaling that the place is trying to keep up with trends, to sort of, you know, it's the same way that you saw the Edison light bulb go from New York City to like every restaurant around the country, trying to say, we're with the times, we're hip, we care about design just like they do in Brooklyn and blah blah. This is what happens. This is again why the people who are restaurant consultants always have worked in these markets and then go out and consult. Right. Like, because people want to bring what they think is happening in these cities to these other markets where people are hungry for it, where people like do well and want to also have nice things. People around the country should be able to have nice things.
Only some of them.
Anyways, let us know what you think. Hit us up at podcast@vinepair.com, and I'll talk to both of you on Monday.
Have a nice weekend.
Sounds great.
Thanks so much for listening to the VinePair Podcast, the flagship podcast of the VinePair Podcast Network. If you love this podcast, please leave us a rating or review wherever it is that you are currently listening to it on. It really helps other people discover the show. Also, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your colleagues. Basically, tell anyone about the VinePair Podcast. It's always very appreciated, especially by Joanna. The podcast is hosted by myself, Adam Teeter, our editor-in-chief, Joanna Sciarrino, and Zach Jabal, former sommelier from Seattle, Washington, as we all know. It is edited by Darby Seaside. Theme music also by Darby Seaside. Art for the podcast by Daniel Grinberg. VinePair was co-founded by myself and Josh Mallon. Thanks so much again for listening, and we will see you again the next time you listen to an episode. If you made it all the way through these credits, I again consider you a super fan.